art should really be accessible, and it's there for everyone to like or not like also, which is also fine, but have this immediate reaction to it.
Hi Vogue, this is Leslie. I am at the Taipei Fine Arts Museum, joined by Sam Bardaouil and Till Fellrath, who are the curators of this year's Taipei Biennial. Sam and Till, it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
So the curatorial concept, Whispers on the Horizon, I know is taken from Taiwanese cultural elements, including cinema and literature. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
We wanted to curate a biennial that you could only see here in Taipei. For that reason, we immersed ourselves in a long period of listening, of engaging with different specialists in different fields, which led us to the three objects that became the framework of the biennial. The first one is the puppet, Hao Xuxian's film, The Puppet Master. It's about the puppet master Li Tianlu. It was fascinating to see how, despite all the changes that Taiwan went through, he kept himself committed to this art form as a means of a stable cultural identifier. And then there was this devastating short story by Chen Yingzhen, My Kid Brother Kiang Xiang, which looks at a sister who is reading the diary of her brother after he had committed suicide. And it shows us something about those who get left behind, this kind of attempt to reconcile this, idealism of youth with a disillusionment because you can't cope with the changes. What happens to those who are yearning to find their place and they can't? And finally, Wu Mingyi's novel, The Stolen Bicycle, which traces the story of a man who is trying to find his missing father by trying to find his father's lost bicycle. And in the process, the novel becomes a meditation on family, on belonging, on the transformation and the modern history of Taiwan. Through all these kind of different sources, yearning became this kind of connecting thread that led us to the construction of the biennial Whispers on the Horizon.
It's very poetic, very abstract. When you're selecting the artist's works, how did you construct a cohesive curatorial narrative to translate this feeling into the visual and conceptual language?
Well, I think yearning is a very universal theme in a sense, and this is where art plays a crucial role in expressing that. I think one of the reasons to select these artists are that they all express this in a very different poetic way. And I do think when you walk through the exhibition, many works will directly speak to you or actually make you imagine for something that you're really striving for. So it is first and foremost creating a very kind of harmonious, visceral and emotional walkthrough as you go through the exhibition.
What do you hope for the visitors to take away?
One, to slow down. We're living in a time when we're constantly stimulated by so much. We want people to experience the artworks and the installations in a slowed down rhythm so that they can start connecting with the ideas in the works. As you see, this is a work by Afra Al-Dahiri from the UAE. Rope kind of bundles that create these heaps, and the idea is for people to come in and to slow down and maybe sit on these heaps, take time to reflect. And this is her response to how her society in the UAE has been changing so fast. The process of modernization in the last 20 years has been so quick. And she's coping with this and trying to understand the link between tradition and innovation. So that's just kind of one example.
Right. What was your process? Like when looking at artists or artworks? I mean, you selected 72 from a pool of
hundreds. The thing is, the research doesn't also start when you start working on the biennial. We've been working with artists for a good 2 decades. When the idea of the biennial started kind of crystallizing in our mind, you start immediately making these connections with artists or artworks or practices that you feel echo that yearning, echo that theme. You do not want to impose your ideas on an artistic practice, but you want to bring works that together create this environment that allows the sentiment to come through. You were asking a lot of the artists, what do you yearn for? And I think a lot of the works have that innate kind of desire to connect to something.
And it's this sort of calling, this subtle calling.
Slowly making the
connection. And maybe not even really understanding yourself what it is that you want. And I think the theme and the general lines became to us apparent very quickly, actually, in our first trip when we were asked to do the biennial. And having been here before, we felt that it expresses also a state of a society, not really knowing where is it going to go, and this longing to be complete somehow is, I think, a very powerful feeling which many, many artists actually are addressing.
And maybe I can just add one thing, that out of the 72 artists, we have around 20 artists that are from the collection of TFAM, because we wanted to further embed the theme within the history of modern art in Taiwan and understand how artists who have lived here, who were invested in these questions locally, and open it up to dialogue with international positions, to kind of go back to this idea of universality.
So it's actually a real global dialogue about a universal emotion. So coming from Lebanese and German cultural backgrounds, I'm sure this diversity is an integral part of your curatorial perspective.
Absolutely. I think it really matters where you grow up, what are your experiences. And in fact, the diversity is also in our educational backgrounds. Sam, studied art history, but also acting. He worked as an actor. My background is in economics and political science. All these different viewpoints still connect on some very fundamental principles, but it is exactly that negotiation and the diversity in thinking and the diversity in training that actually brings projects to light that are perhaps broader and more connected than there would be if you're just doing them on your own. We both very much believe in teamwork, and we felt maybe there is something more to a kind of a creative partnership and not follow an institutional model, but really just decide on projects on our own and kind of see how far we can push it. Yeah, now we're here in Taipei.
And you've worked on projects all around the world. How do you balance local experience and global vision in your curatorial process?
It all starts with understanding what is the core of your practice. It's a process of listening. As curators, we believe that our role is a role of a mediator. Given the fact that we travel so much, we've seen so much, allows us to have this global perspective. But when we arrive to a place like Taiwan, it's very important to listen to the local conversation and then find these affinities. So the local conversation is not isolated and peripheral, but it's embedded in something truly universal. It's also very important not to level the specificity of the place. And that is, I think, the core of our curation, finding that very thin balance between the two.
I think it's also very important to understand what it is that you can do when you're not from a place. You have to come in on an equal footing, and finding how to maybe listen and how to negotiate it. That is really one of the core things when you do these projects. It has to be part of an organic, local kind of negotiation. At the end of the day, the biennial is made by mostly people that live and work here in Taiwan that are from the city. It's their biennial. So doing something that brings a global view, but then it ultimately has to truly resonate and truly be a local biennial at the end of the day.
How do you define the act of curating? What kind of curators do you consider yourselves to be?
I think curating is about storytelling in real time, in real space, with real bodies. So how do you construct an environment is an essential part of what a curatorial exercise is all about. But I also think that curation is very much about mediation and very much about opening up the space, holding place for so many different voices, and so that everyone feels that when they come into an exhibition, they see themselves somehow reflected in it, and that there is enough space for them to bring their own voice. So it's not about a final endpoint. It's actually the beginning. Every curatorial project is the opening up of a space for further reflections, and people can come in and fill in their own endings. I think that's probably, for me, what gets me excited about being a curator and curating.
It kind of has a life of its own, right? That evolves.
Totally, you have to let it
organically.
go. Yes.
We strongly believe that everybody can come to this exhibition and take away something. You do not have to be an expert. Sometimes I feel I'm also not understanding what is going on when I go to an exhibition. There should be that human connection, because art should really be accessible, and it's there for everyone to like or not like also, which is also fine, but have just this immediate reaction to it.
Perhaps a bit like very successful fashion design. I think when you see yourself in the clothes and you feel that I can also see myself in this design, and it's not just kind of intimidating. That's exactly what we need to strip away from some of the things we encounter in the arts world. We don't want to intimidate. We want to kind of bring in
accessibility.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to ask, was there a particular moment that made you rethink the position of Asia or Taiwan within the global art discourse?
Yeah, I think the more you travel, the more you realize that where you come from is just a tiny little place in the bigger global cosmos of arts and culture.
And I would also think Partially it has to do with personal biography. I am from Lebanon. I've grown up looking at the world in a very different way than if I were, born or brought up in Cincinnati. Not there's anything wrong with our friends in Cincinnati.
It's just very different.
Yes, exactly. And Till's family has been also traveling extensively from when he was a young kid. So he's been exposed to different places and cultures. It also becomes something that kind of unfolds like a chain. You make connections with people, you meet artists. For instance, we met Leo Fan many years ago, and he introduced us to so many important artists from his generation in Korea. So we started traveling there, and then you meet other artists who introduce you to another geography or to another community of artists, another generation, another practice. So it becomes a cumulative thing that is always kind of unfolding from very deep and personal connections.
You mentioned so much about traveling and how important it is to shape one's perspective. How do you think traveling could speak to someone who actually feels displaced?
It's a really great question. It is also something in this biennial
right,
in many
because,
ways.
We were talking about resilience,
absolutely,
and displacement,
absolutely.
And
the benefit is, I think, when you travel, you get out of your place of origin. You can kind of reinvent yourself. And I think many people that have this feeling of not fitting in somewhere take these kind of choices. You run away a little bit. You try to figure out who you are, try to become that person. I think many artists or many creative people often feel this way and express something about that state of being, but perhaps that is actually the most human state of being. And I think this element of displacement is something that you can reconcile very nicely when you travel a lot.
Collecting bits of your identity from different places and kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, very much so. And I think you then can make it work anywhere, really. And maybe you don't fit anywhere for good, but that's also maybe a good thing. That's the beauty of it, because you realize also there is a certain globality or global humanity that we're all part of somehow.
There's a very beautiful word in the Arabic language that describes travel. The Arabic word is safar. The root of the word is safir, which means revealed. So the idea of travel in the Arabic language is not going from point A to point B. It's actually a process of things becoming unveiled and revealed, because when you leave something behind and you have that distance of time and space, you reflect on your connection to these places and things get revealed to you that otherwise would have never been so clear had you stayed in that one place. There's this process of inevitable pain, but in that pain there's also the possibility of growth.
And it's a great state of mind, I think, also to constantly challenge yourself and not be afraid of something you don't know. You don't have to maybe fully agree or fully understand it, and nobody can really relive a lived experience of something that you have not lived yourself. But just saying, oh, but that's okay. I can hear it, I can respect it, and I stay open-minded, and I grow into the future.
Embracing the unknown.
Embracing the unknown, absolutely.
Thank you so much to both of you today.
Thank you so much for having us,
for
really.
Giving us
Thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing such beautiful works to Taipei.
So we're waiting for you. We're waiting for you. Whispers on the horizon.